Hey guys, what's up? We are back. Welcome. Part 4, F.A.M E Weekly Talk. You know how this works, man. Every week we do this, the F.A.M E family. Every week we interview some amazing individuals all across the spectrum of food, arts, music, and the environment. Yep, and every week, of course, we have a theme. This week's theme, Out in the Open. Out in the Open? Out in the Open. There you go. Mishka Mac here, that is my name, alright? And I'm the host of this awesome show. Yes, because we're awesome. Oh, yeah. So, like I said before, every week we do a theme. This week's theme, Out in the Open. Make sure that you also follow the F.A.M E family, alright? F.A.M E Festival _ Barbados on Instagram. Yeah, that's where we do this, okay? Every week, right here on Mondays, we're coming to you guys live from my collection, Barbados. You see all the awesome pieces in here? Look at this. Every time I come in here, I always get, it's like a kid in a candy store, a child in a candy store. You see this? This is a body scrub. Oh, there's a necklace here too. Wonderful. Okay, guys, so, up next, who are we going to be chatting with? You know, I kind of get carried away. Co-founded Be Glad, yes, to improve the life of LHTB students on campus. That's at UE. And now, back in 2017, actually, she co-founded SHE Barbados, that focuses on advocacy, research, and movement building of queer women and transgender, right? Also the organizer of Gay Pride Barbados. Yes, we were there. It was good. All right, so we're going to be chatting with her man, Ann Mohammed. She's going to tell us her story. We're so excited to know. Yes, we are. So make sure that you guys follow F.A.M E Festival. Yep, _ Barbados. Yep. Yes. So we're going to be chatting with her, right? We're just going to wait a while till we get some people. Come on over. Make sure that you guys join the movement, join the family. Come on over. Yes, let's do this. Want to say hey to the F.A.M E family as well. Margit, Badu. Yes. And of course, everyone who has joined us from before, okay? Oh my God, all the past guests as well. Hi, Kirk. Hi, Hyper. One love. Oh my goodness, I love my bag. My bag. I got my bag last week. So amazing, so beautiful. I'm like, I'm going to the beach and I'm taking this bag with me for sure. Okay, guys. So, are you ready to do this? We are going to be having a conversation for sure. This is an interesting conversation, as all the interviews are very. We're going to have a conversation. Yes, we are. Like I said, we're coming to you guys live from my collection, Barbados. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I am good. What's up? How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for stopping by. First of all, congratulations on the great work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you. That's really
Yes, great work. Okay, and for everyone else who's been living, I don't know, under a rock and I have no idea what we're talking about. Yeah. Ann Mohammed. Tell us about, you're doing so much. Like I read before that you co-founded SHE Barbados. I'm just going to let you just tell everyone, a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so, oh my gosh, I don't know where to start. I'm originally from Trinidad and Tobago, living in Barbados since 2011. I initially came over here to attend UE at Cave Hill, and as you mentioned, that's where I got involved in advocacy and just like LGBT activism. And I co-founded Be Glad, which is a public advocacy organization, particularly based in advocacy for LGBT people living in Barbados. But I found that it was really important to sort of diversify the narrative around LGBT issues and rights in Barbados at the time, particularly moving away from that conversation of just HIV to well-rounded conversation, right? From there, I started focusing a lot on feminism and women's rights and thinking about the intersection of women's rights and also LGBT rights and women who belong to the LGBT community as well. So I've been involved in a lot of work, but I identify as a feminist first, and into the work that I do now with SHE Barbados, which is an organization that focuses specifically on LBQ women and trans people in Barbados. And as you mentioned, I coordinate Barbados's Pride Parade, and we had the first one in 2018.
Okay, wow, that's a lot. It really is, which is in a good way, of course. Not overwhelming. It's just a lot of things that you're doing. So, okay, so coming from Trinidad. Coming here, you decided to start
be glad.
Yeah.
You know, what really? I mean, it would seem like an obvious question, like obviously because it's the lack of representation here. But what really inspired you to start it?
Yeah. I co-founded Be Glad with Donya Pegot, who was also going to university at the time with me. And we were a student association while we were at UE called Quiche. And there were queers at UE Cave Hill campus. Um, and it was supposed to be just for students who were part of the campus and going to school at UE. But after a while, we noticed that there were so many people just across Barbados who wanted to join the organization and just wanted to have a safe space to be a part of, wanted to like connect with community, to be a part of the movement, wanted to attend events that were not just parties, but things that were educational, and realized that there was just such a space there because at the moment there was no organization that specifically focused on LGBTQ community. There was UGLA, which was formed in 2000 by Darcy Day and Didi Winston, who are like pioneers for the LGBT movement in Barbados. And that was United Gays Lesbians Against AIDS Barbados. So again, the conversation was really, really focused on HIV and AIDS, which was really important coming out of the 80s and the 90s. But as time progressed, realized that there are just so many more issues, right? And hyper focusing on like the HIV and AIDS aspect of things. Really like one synonymizes like LGBTQ people with HIV, and we're so much more than that. Visibilizes all the other things that we are, right? Because LGBT people are so dynamic and so diverse. And I think we just deserve to be represented. So out of that, Be Glad was born. And from there, my advocacy just sort of developed over the years.
Wow. And how has the response been? You know, going from when you started, when there was no one else there doing it when you guys started,
Yeah.
to now.
Yeah, I mean, so I think even when I started, I feel like people were doing things in their own ways. So people weren't always like super public, but in Barbados, I feel like LGBT people have always been doing work in their own ways. So even though it might not have been like hyper visible, like even like in the 60s and the 70s, there were like drag shows called, the Queen of the Bees show. So like people have always been like doing things in the shadows. I know like on the West Coast a lot, there's so many restaurants where they have like drag shows and stuff like that. But visibility is super important, right? So people often hide and things are done in secrecy a lot. And with reason, people are afraid of discrimination. But we just think that visibility is so important because a lot of the discrimination that people face is based on ignorance, and ignorance is due to lack of education and lack of visibility. So when we first started, I think there was resistance, as there always is. People are always just so surprised that I openly, I'm like proudly identify as who I am. I'm a queer woman. And that always is shocking to people. They're like, oh my God, aren't you afraid of backlash? Um, I think people also are surprised by like my presentation often. They're like, but you don't look it. And I think it's important to identify, for me, to sort of shatter the myths that come with what people think being LGBT or being queer is. So there was a lot of backlash when we first started, and there was a lot of secret support. I would say there's a lot of support, but people were like always, really afraid to be visibly supportive. And as time has gone by, I will say that a lot of that support has come out of the woodwork. People are a lot less afraid now to be visibly supportive of the movement. And I think a great example of that is when we coordinated Pride in 2018 for the first time. When we had the parade, I thought that, it would just be like me and maybe like 10 other people. But I was so moved and pleasantly surprised to see hundreds of people turn up. Most of them, even, part of our community. So I think that's really a testament to the amount that people have grown in their like lack of fear to support the community and to support the movement. That's not to say that resistance has gone away. There's still a lot of resistance that has grown as well. But I think a lot that people's support has also been growing.
Wow, that's fantastic. Now, when you say you started Pride, like you said, you thought it was going to be you were like 10 other people. I want to say hey to Tiffany Skinner for sure. Flow Yoga Barbados and the Eco Kids as well, because she dragged me this year. Not that I didn't want to go. I'm like, oh my God, it's so hot outside. Why? And she's like, no, we're going. And, she got her kids, her two children all dressed up, and they were just there with the flag and everything. So, yeah, we made an appearance this year. So thank you, Tiffany, for that one. And thank you so much for putting me on, though. Really and truly. So I look forward to that, for sure. Sorry?
I remember her bringing the babies as well.
Yep, she was so there up front and center. Like, yeah, we're going for sure. Okay, so SHE Barbados.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I read what it's about, but I'd like you just to explain exactly,
Like I mentioned, I've been involved in advocacy since 2011, and throughout the years, I think I really sort of witnessed the ways in which the women who are part of this community and transgender people who are part of this community have sort of been like marginalized, even within the context of the wider LGBT community. The hyper focus, like I mentioned before, had always been on HIV and gay men, and HIV and gay men, and it was just so reductive. So we started thinking about all the ways in which the women in this community were marginalized. I think in 2015, a newspaper published a story about a lesbian who was raped, and it was a joke. It was in gossip column. When you see like grants and funding that are available for the movement, they always focus on HIV stuff. So it's just like, women are at the forefront often. Women are at the forefront doing things and leading the work. But then at the same hand, on the same token, marginalized. And in 2017, the church, or I will say the church, but a couple of people who are representatives of a certain denomination, they had a march or protest in Bridgetown to reclaim the rainbow from the LGBT community. And myself and a few other women who are part of the LGBT community were like, we're not just going to like stand by and watch this happen. We're going to show up and hold them accountable for the dangerous narrative that they're perpetuating. And I remember...
Perpetuating?
Yeah, super dangerous. And I remember on the day, it was myself and I think 12 other women, and I looked around and I was like, women are always at the forefront, Yeah. And from then, that's when I decided to form SHE Barbados, because I was like, there needs to be a space that specifically deals with the issues that we face, when it comes to sexual and reproductive health, also like family building, just so many different things that exist within the intersection of women's rights and LGBT rights that nobody is ever speaking about. So from there, we started as a digital platform, sort of just raise awareness. Then we moved into doing research. We've done a research project that was carried in 8 different Caribbean countries, and we led the research in Barbados, which focused on the experiences of LBT women, LBQ women, and trans people in Barbados when it comes to things like violence, mental health, accessing healthcare, sexual and reproductive health and rights, discrimination and accessing social services, all of these different things. Because one of the things that people always say is like, there's no discrimination, like where's the evidence, right? So collecting data has been really important. And now we're starting a clinic, actually next week, from the end of this month, we'll be starting a clinic. Nice. Free services to people from the community, focusing on doing things like pap smears, general checkups, all going to be free of charge, because that's all a barrier for people accessing services in our community. Things like testing, all of that, just making sure that we're bringing our issues to the forefront and sort of meeting the needs of the community.
Oh my God, congratulations. So commendable, isn't it? What? So wait, so this clinic, where is it going to be?
Yeah, so it's going to be at Equals Barbados, which is located in Clapham Heights. But for specific details, you could reach out to us via social media, or you could book an appointment on our website.
Right. Just put all the information in the comment section when so that we just remember and everyone here can see where we can find you guys to do a clinic. Like, who starts the clinic, right? Wow. Oh my goodness. Okay, so the response in Barbados. I'm listening to everything that you're saying, and discriminating. That you said you have to evidence that is actually happening in Barbados. But I'm sitting here in absolute awe, in shock and awe, I guess, because again, I'm not so much exposed to it, Maybe from that standpoint, just to hear it, it's almost like I'm thinking, oh my God, it's like Barbados, beautiful Barbados. It's just, I am almost, I feel very disappointing and it's just kind of heartbreaking, everyone in the community, the LGBTQ community, just have to go through something like this. I mean,
yeah.
Let's see, so you guys do offer like counseling and things along those lines as well?
Yeah, so mental health is also a really important aspect of like community care and well-being. So that's also a really important part of the new project which we'll be undertaking. So the clinic will be focusing on physical health, but we'll also have a space every month which will focus on the mental health and well-being for our community as well. And it's really it's really interesting that you say beautiful Barbados, and it's not something that people think of. And I think even just within like a regional context, people always think Barbados is doing so much better than so many other countries because we don't hear about physical violence really often. But like physical violence is not always the only indicator for discrimination. And oftentimes it's not that this violence is not happening, but people just aren't reporting these things because most of the time the violence and the discrimination comes from people that people that you're closest to, your families. So many youth, their families are putting them out of their homes. It's when people go to the clinic to try to get services. You go to a polyclinic and a nurse tells you like, well, you shouldn't be gay in the first place, so people can't get access to the services. And we hear these stories all the time, people going to the police station and the police lose their reports or don't want to take their reports. So many different things. But I will say that I'm really, really pleased with the progress that is happening in Barbados. So the bill that was just passed to prevent discrimination in the workplace specifically includes sexual orientation. So it does not include gender identity and gender expression, which still makes transgender, non-binary people vulnerable. But Minister Jordan met with representatives of our organization and Equals last week, and they owned up to the fact that this was like a blind spot on their part, and that they to improve, and they're willing to continue improving our legislation. And then the throne speech that just happened, which spoke about civil unions between same-sex couples. So progress is happening, and I'm really, really proud of Barbados for taking these steps and taking this initiative to make sure that LGBT people are included in this conversation.
Amazing. Thank you. This is good news, right? A little sigh of relief, at least, like you said, it's getting one step closer.
Yes, progress is being made. I think that it's a lot of work to be done, and there are a lot of things that we inherited from our colonial history. So it's easy to criticize. I think quite often people are like, oh, the Caribbean is one of the most homophobic places, and I can't stand this homophobia and all this stuff. But progress is being made, and I think it's really due in part to the work that's being done now, and also the foundation that has been set out by all of the activists that have been doing this work for decades and decades.
Wow, it's amazing though. I'm so proud of you guys. Honestly, when I say you guys, I mean the community for sure. Again, for stepping up this way and actually doing something about it. It's one thing for us to sit and say, "Oh my God, I don't agree with what's happening," but to get up and actually do something, it's a whole nother story, man, for sure. So yeah. I know some of the preferred terms. I just want to make sure that we get it correct, because I know sometimes people can say something that is a bit offensive. Depends on, again, your sexual preference. It's best for us just to, gay, straight, bi, trans. Is there like a word that we can just use to just so that you don't step on anyone's toes?
Yeah, I think generally the acronym LGBTQ or LGBT is a safe acronym to use. Okay. People tend to get intimidated because there's so many different things. And I think that people sort of shy away from even engaging in the conversation because they're just afraid of stepping on toes. But I think speaking to people who are part of the community and taking the time to engage with community members, just like we're having this conversation, is a really, really helpful step. Doing just simple research, because it will seem like a lot when you're looking at the situation from the outside. But just engaging with people, and if you're afraid of stepping on any toes, ask a question. I think engagement is like the first key to like breaking down barriers. I think one of the biggest problems that we have is that people feel like LGBTQ people or queer and trans people are so separate from the society. It's like us and them. And I think people need to realize and acknowledge that we are part of the same society.
I think everyone else, and take no offense to this, everyone else is watching. I think we're the one that did this. Everyone else that, they're the ones that kind of just like, oh my God, just separate. It's church and thing, and I'm like, oh, you know what I mean, right? I think,
Yeah.
they're the ones that did it.
To end that othering, dialogue and conversation and just education needs to happen. And just recognition of the fact that we all have differences, whether it be race, class, sexual orientation, gender identity, ability, all of these different things and markers of our identity sort of make us who we are. So just as you would engage with somebody on a topic like race or their disability or so many different things, I think it's important to engage on the topic of sexual orientation and gender identity once it's being done respectfully. And there are persons like myself and so many others in society who are not afraid to be visible and sort of engage in these conversations. So, and I'm sure, like we don't bite. We're happy to engage and educate.
Are you still there? Okay, we just had a technical glitch here. They're listening.
Yes.
They're listening. Oh, okay. I just wanted to just be sure, because I know sometimes to me, like, it is a bit intimidating sometimes. I know, gay, straight, bi, it's then when you start getting a little bit more technical with it, like non-binary and stuff like that, I'm almost like, oh my God, I don't want to say something that will offend, so just stick with the acronym. We should be good, and we're not missing any letters whatsoever, right? Just want to be sure. Okay, so on the more of a personal note, parents having conversations with children.
Yeah.
I don't want to say confused, but just a bit curious.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, for parents are probably watching, how do you have any advice on who about having this conversation with your child? If you notice, I don't know.
As parents might be like super confused or super intimidated or scared when thinking they might have a child who is LGBT. I think they should keep in mind that the child is probably 10 times more afraid. And as a parent, and I'm not a parent, so I can't speak from like a parent's perspective, but I am a child who is LGBT. I could speak about my experience in dealing with my parents. What I would have wanted from my parents is just to know that they support me, regardless of my orientation or gender identity, to know that I'm loved, and to know that, regardless of who I am or who I love, the clothes that I choose to wear, that once I'm a decent person and I'm not harming other people, that they support me and that they're in my corner. And I think that's something that could be relayed about parenthood across the board, but yeah, it's something that I would have wanted, because being a child that is LGBT, particularly for transgender children, the world can be very unkind. So parents should make sure that children feel most supported at home, because I think a strong support system and a strong community are really, really key in protecting your mental health and making sure that you can face the brunt of the harsh, because it can be really harsh. And for youth who are dealing with just so many different things, to have to deal with confusion around their sexual orientation and gender identity, and then hostility from their own family, it could really, really impact your mental health. So just deal with it with patience. I mean, it's okay if you don't know everything, because your child doesn't know everything either. But I think once they know that you are on that journey with them and you support them, then it should be okay.
It's a whole lot different. Oh my goodness, so well said, right? Just knowing, like you said, at least when the world decides to just turn it back on you, right? At least you have the support of, you know, your family.
Yeah.
Makes such a difference. And how do you think the school can help, you know, with the transition?
I think I think something that we don't talk about enough is respect to people's pronouns, and I think people are really intimidated to even have that conversation. But I think even just normalizing the conversation around pronouns for people who are not trans is important. Letting people know that, like, hey, I go by she, her. What do you go by? And sort of respecting that women don't have to look a certain way, men don't have to look a certain way. And thinking about how you would want to feel in an environment, you know, as a teacher, how do you want to feel in school? How would you want to feel in a classroom? I think we've all been children before, and people at what it's like to be a child in a strange environment. There's so many different things that can make your childhood hard. And I don't think that being in a school environment that doesn't accept you for who you are is helpful. I think that once a child is in class and they're there to learn, that other factors shouldn't really impact their ability to learn in a classroom. And I think we need to be sure that other children are accommodating of diversity within classrooms, and we need to do more to make sure that our environments are accommodating of diverse children. And that's not just LGBT, but it's, you know, children with disabilities, children who learn differently, children who are of different races. I think across the board we could do a good job, and a better job at making sure that we are respectful of diversity within all of our spaces.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Well said. Well done. You got this? You're hearing this? Wow. Listen, I want to thank you so much for stopping by. I would love to continue chatting with you all night long. I would love to. the battery. Okay, so I want to thank you so much. Listen, make sure that you also put it in the comment section where we can find you, if you have to subscribe to your magazine. I really, you know, and if anyone wants to be a part of whatever movement that you guys are doing, for sure, we're going to be there. Let us know when the clinic is opening so we can at least come by and show support. You know, and again, you guys are doing an amazing job, a phenomenal job, and know that a lot of people, with no pressure, right? You make such a difference. You make such a huge difference. Yeah, to know that somebody is actually fighting for equality for everyone all across the board. All right. So again, Ann Mohammed, thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule to have this conversation with us, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you for having me. Thanks so much.
Yes.
And I also just want to say before I go that people, if somebody's struggling with their sexual orientation or their gender identity, they should know that they don't need to be, you know, visible. Like, you don't need to come out. You don't need to be, you know, out and proud and open. If you want to, that's fine. But if not, it doesn't make you and your identity any less valid.
Wow, well said. See, there you go. Confirmation right there. There you go. So everyone waiting for that confirmation. You just said it. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Again, all the best. And we're going to be looking forward to seeing you, all right? Margaret, we go to the clinic. All right. All the best.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, my goodness. Great. Out in the open indeed. Listen, guys. We are going to go right now because we don't want this family to die, all right? So again, thank you guys so much for stopping by. That was the FAME Weekly Talk. Thank you so much to all the guests. Oh my goodness, Rude Boy, Rami, they come to get some round, of course. Khadijah, oh my goodness. Mr. Chris, oh yeah, and of course, Miss Mohammed. Rohan, thank you so much for stopping by. Again, this has been FAME Weekly Talk. I'm sure that you guys also follow us on Instagram, all right? Mitch Kamakte, that is my name, and I'll catch you guys next week, all right, for sure. My collection Barbados. Bye-bye. Okay.